So in 7.2, we're going to look at the product property of powers. Okay, product meaning multiplication. So how do I multiply powers with the same base? And I really just want to look back at how we would have done this problem and what we know in regards to what it means to have a number or a letter to a certain power. So let's look at 3 to the 4th. That just means 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. And I tell students all the time, write it out. Okay, so write them out. It'll help you with them. We're going to multiply then, because that's what I see right here is multiplication. And let's look at the second part of this problem. 3 squared is just 3 times 3. So what do we have? What would our final answer be here? Well, it'd be 3 to what power? To the 6th power, because there's 6 of them. So let's talk about the rule real quick. The rule here when we have a product property of powers, that's a lot of P's there, product property of powers, the rule here would be that our base, let's just say 3 to the m times 3 to the n. What did we do with the 4 and the 2 to get the 6? We add them together. So you keep your base and you are just adding your exponents, m plus n. But again, I can't stress enough, you can always go back to writing it out. So let's look at example 2. We have the same base. The base is 12 on both of them. So 12 to the 4th power times 12 to the 3rd power is just going to be 12. And we're going to take our 4 plus the 3, and we get 12 to the 7th power. And that's how we're looking at these. Even if we have a negative exponent, and we know that there is a rule for that, we can talk about that later on down the road, but I want us to practice using the product property, the rule here, for all of these. So let's go ahead and look at example 3. The base is the same. So we have -5. We're going to take our -2 plus 7. We're going to add our exponents. And this problem would be -5 to the 5th power. The -5 is in parentheses. We need to write it in parentheses. And again, I want us to practice using that rule here. Let's look at the next slide. That's it. So here we've got some letters involved. Okay. And again, we could write this out, but let's try to look at the rule. First off, what are the coefficients in front? A 4 and a 9, and there's still the multiplication sign. So we're just going to multiply those. What is 4 times 9? Well, 4 times 9 is 36. Now let's look at our bases that have a power. It's x and x. So we can write it as x. And what do we do with the exponents? Because we're still multiplying them here, product property. We're going to add those. 5 plus the -12. And so what we get here is a 36x to the -7th. But remember, we are not simplified unless we have all positive exponents. This one isn't positive. Our coefficients are simplified, and we only see the letter written one time. So we need to move. We're actually going to have to pull back in those rules we learned from the last lesson. Let's write this as a fraction. Place it over 1. So what is to the negative exponent? Just the x. I'm going to circle it to make it positive. I move it to the denominator. And so your final answer on this one would be 36 divided by x to the 7th power. When you move it to the denominator, it becomes positive. So there are many times we're going to use more than one property to evaluate or to get an answer for these problems and simplify. Let's look at our last example here. And I want to write this one out just to show you how you can write it out. We have 2a, 2 times a, times 9, times 4 b's, times 3, times 2 more a's. So we can always go back to writing it out. I kind of like to pull those numbers out first. So my 2 times my 9 times my 3. Remember, commutative property of addition and multiplication. It doesn't matter the order that we multiply in. So if we look at 2 times 9 times 3, well, we're going to, if I did 2 times 3, I get 6, and 6 times 9 we know is 54. And then let's look at all of our A's. How many do we have? Well, we have 3 of them. So this would be A to the third. And how many B's do we have? We have 4, B to the fourth, and that would be simplified. If you wanted to just add the exponents that had the same power, the 2a, I want to remind you that this would be an exponent of 1. There's 1 there. So to get the a cubed, we would have added 1 plus 2, and that's how we get a to the third power. Our b is just b to the fourth, and we just got b to the fourth. So product property of powers, multiplying.